Happy Friday, Lakeshore family. The staff and I are excited to share with you the devotion for the next few weeks called Pursuing His Presence. The devotion time is supposed to prepare our hearts for the Easter season, so I hope that it's been a blessing to you this week. If you haven't begun, I encourage you to download a copy of it or pick one up from the church this week if you haven't started. This week we looked at Moses' calling, and let me just summarize a little bit for you. In chapter 3, Moses meets God in the burning bush. Here he's given his call to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt. All throughout this chapter, we see God assuring Moses that he has been there the entire time that Israel has been enslaved. He promised over and over to deliver them, and not only that, but to deliver them and provide them abundance in the journey that they were going to make. In the moment that he meets Moses, he introduces himself as Yahweh, or I am. His name means all-powerful and all-sustaining. It's a name that establishes his reign over all things. The God who was, is, and will be. That alone should have been enough for Moses, but we see in chapter 4 that Moses is afraid, and he's afraid that the elders won't believe him. He's afraid that Pharaoh won't listen. And his own personal shortcomings in speech would be a reason for him not to go. I can't imagine being bold enough to recommend to God that he send somebody else in his place, but Moses did. Again, God promised that he would be with Moses, and he even equipped Moses with his power and the ability to do signs. And then in chapter 5, because of Moses's and Aaron's leadership, the Israelites are punished, and they quickly turn on Moses and Aaron. And again, God, who's faithful in all things, is working things together for their good, but they still don't believe that he is. Moses, who is already doubtful of his own abilities, is being challenged by the people that he leads. We know the rest of the story, and there are a couple of other things that we can learn from these chapters. So a couple of the things that I learned this week. One, we all feel moments of anxiety about our shortcomings. We feel like we don't know enough, or we're not outspoken enough, or we're afraid that somebody will reject us, or we fear failure. But there's one thing that I try to remind myself, and that's God does not compromise the call for the sake of our feelings. He equips us in the call. What I appreciate from today's devotion is the verse that says, "Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, do not quench the spirit." No matter the inadequacy we feel, God is faithful. As believers, we're equipped with the Spirit. I tell a lot of our LIT kids that they, as believers, have the power of the Holy Spirit in them. That power is so great that any insecurity we might feel can be overcome. It emboldens us in all circumstances, and if he has called us to it, he will be faithful to do it. Two, the second thing I learned, as believers, we're called to make disciples of all nations. That call doesn't begin at a certain age. It doesn't fade away at a certain age. You don't have to have a certain level of education or affluence or reputation, and it doesn't stop when you've reached the highest of those that you can get. He calls us to fulfill his plan and his purpose, but that doesn't happen overnight. We can't get impatient when it's not done in our own timing, like these Israelites who were ready to be out of captivity. They weren't ready to wait on the Lord. So it's got to be done in God's time, and we have to trust that it will happen. So I challenge you to trust God through the difficulties and through the insecurities, and you'll see fruit from your planting. So as a church, we need to trust that God is in those same difficulties and be ready because he has called us to build his kingdom here. I'm ready. I hope you are too. I'm excited for the things that are coming, and I hope that you have a great weekend.